You know how we're always told to fight our inner demons? To conquer the darkness inside us to find peace? Well, what if that whole idea is completely wrong? This is a story, a kind of parable, about a totally different path. It's not about integration, but about something way more radical: acceptance, and ultimately, freedom.
I mean, we all have that voice, right? That inner critic that whispers doubts and pokes holes in our ideas. This quote, it just nails it. It suggests that critic isn't some enemy you have to silence. It's actually an essential partner. Without it, our biggest dreams have no grounding. They're just lost in a baseless sky. Okay, so let's dive into the story. It all kicks off with this incredible conversation. Think of it as a turning point, a dialogue between two masters who are actually part of the same soul. And it's right here that a single realization is about to change. Well, absolutely everything. So try to picture this scene. You've got a jester. He kind of represents our conscious, striving self, the part of us that's always reaching for something more. And he's in this deep, intense conversation with his shadow. You know, that part of ourselves we usually fear or try to push down. It's here, under this symbolic violet canopy, that it all clicks. The jester has this massive epiphany, and he finally, truly understands what the shadow is all about. And boom, there it is, the big realization. For his entire life, the jester has been trying to cage what he saw as a beast. But in that one moment, it all flips. He realizes he hasn't been fighting a monster at all. He's been trying to imprison a sovereign, an independent traveler with its own journey, its own destiny. So the shadow's entire role just gets completely reframed. That constant no, that voice of doubt, it's not a curse. Turns out, it's a shield, protecting him from his own ego getting out of control. It's the mirror that doesn't lie, the one that shows you the unvarnished truth. The jester sees it's not hatred at all, but this thing called holy enmity, a kind of sacred opposition that's actually forging his strength. So, how does this incredible conversation end? Well, not with them merging into one. There's no handshake, no big moment of unity. It's much quieter, much deeper than that. It's just a nod. A moment of profound recognition between two masters of the same soul, finally respecting each other's necessary power. But, you know, recognition is one thing. What happens next is the truly radical part. This is where they actually part ways. So they come to a fork in the path, a literal split. The jester chooses the way up, towards the sun and the light. And the shadow? It turns downward, toward the deep, subterranean roots. Now this is so important. This isn't the jester kicking the shadow out. It's a mutual release, a granting of freedom to each other, to become what they're meant to be. And that just brings up the central question of this whole story, doesn't it? Why on earth would separation, not integration, be the key to becoming whole? I mean, that flies in the face of pretty much everything we're ever told about personal growth. It feels completely counterintuitive. Well, here's the answer the parable gives us. If you try to force the shadow to live in the house of the overman, you know, that perfect, shiny, idealized version of yourself, you're not creating wholeness. You're actually creating an internal tyranny. You haven't integrated a part of yourself, you've imprisoned it. So instead of this forced fake unity, the story gives us this absolutely beautiful concept: star friendship. Think about it. It's a relationship based on honored distance. It's like two stars in a binary system, bound by a mutual gravity, but keeping to their own orbits. They influence each other from afar in a state of respectful, necessary connection. And what's really interesting is that these separate paths end up creating something way more resilient than a forced merger ever could. They create a brand new, totally dynamic kind of balance. Now that it's free to walk its own path, the shadow can finally step into its true noble role. It becomes the custodian of the abyss. It's the great and necessary adversary that ensures the jester's will, his ascent, is never easy, never soft, or unproven. It provides the resistance that creates real strength. And what about the jester? He feels this strange lightness. It's not the absence of weight, the burden is still very real, but the perfection of balance. That endless civil war inside him, it's finally over, because both sides are now free to fulfill their true purpose. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? By granting his darkness its own sovereignty, the jester has ended that constant, draining civil war within himself. He no longer has to police his own depths, because he trusts that the darkness is doing its own important work, and that is the source of his peace. This offers a profound new way to look at that old philosophical idea, amor fati, or love of fate. Here, it's not just about accepting your circumstances. It means actively loving the adversarial part of yourself, that part that says no, loving it so much that you grant it the freedom to exist on its own terms.
And this whole act, this separation, it completely subverts our traditional thinking. In a way, it's the ultimate prank, a mockery played by the jester on the very idea of integration.
So let's just put them side by side. The traditional path is about absorbing and domesticating the shadow, forcing it into some preconceived notion of unity. But the jester's way is radically different. It's about separation, about allowing the darkness to remain wild, and about maintaining that dynamic, distant star friendship.
And this prank is aimed at the last man, the one who fears their own internal duality. The person who seeks a conflict-free life, an easy life, becomes merely a fragment. The jester, by contrast, embraces the whole, complex truth of his being.
And the result is the final state the jester achieves. He hasn't become one thing, he has become a constellation, a beautiful and complex system of two.
So as the jester returns to his mountain home, he isn't a hermit who has cut himself off from the world or from himself. No, he is a sovereign, a lord, who understands and respects the borders within his own soul. He rules a kingdom, not a single sterile room.
So the real takeaway here is a fundamental shift in what the goal even is. The quest is not to win a battle for unity. The quest is to host a celebration of multiplicity, where every distinct part of your soul is honored and allowed to live by its own law, in harmony with the others.
And that leaves us with this final, incredibly powerful image. By rejecting the pre-written rules of integration, he has killed the teacher within. He is no longer a student of someone else's system. He has become the sovereign architect of his own unique world, a world that is both radiant and shadowed, and perfect because of it. And so we end with this question to carry with you. What if the path to inner peace isn't about forcing all the disparate parts of you into a single unified column? What if, instead, true peace comes from having the courage to grant every part of your being the freedom to walk its own necessary path?